Question number 11. What does question number 11 say? Question number 11 says, a farmer draws a rough sketch of the two adjacent fields he needs to fence. So he has two fields, field number one and field number two. He needs to put a fence around both of them. He needs to put a fence around both of them. You see. So him putting a fence around both of them, it says here, a farmer draws a rough sketch of the two adjacent fields he needs to fence. Field A is a square with a width of 6. So if it's a square, you have to remember that this is x, this is also going to be x, this is also automatically x, this is also automatically x. Don't take for granted those pieces of information, and this is also automatically x. Then it says, let's see here, the field B is a rectangular shape with a width of y. The area of field A, plus the area of field B is 1,000 units squared. Then it says here NR, which is from N going to R, is the only fence that is shared by both field A and B. Then it says write y in terms of x. That's a very easy question because you have the area of field A, right? Which is just going to be, let's see here, area of A is just x times x, which is x squared. The area of B, they told us it is just y times x. The thing now is, if you add them up, you get 1,000. So x squared plus xy is 1,000. The reason why I say this was a straightforward question is because anytime they want you to write down something in terms of another variable, it means you need an equation. Now, your own description has given you an equation here. So you use that equation to get something in terms of x, as in a value of y in terms of x. So what you do is you can isolate, it looks like, let's see, what can you do here? You can take the x squared to the other side, it becomes a negative x squared. Divide both sides by x afterwards. You can have y is equal to 1,000 minus x squared over x. If you want to simplify, you can have 1,000 over x minus x, because x squared divided by x is going to be x, and then y is here. So you have your equation in terms of you have your equation of y in terms of x. It's quite a straightforward example here. So you need to know how to do these kinds of things very easily. Otherwise, your life is going to be a bit hard, but all this is nice. It's okay. So here they now said, calculate the value of x so that the minimum amount of fencing is used. So this question and the previous one, they could have just made it a one big question for 8 marks because that's the nature of IEP. But fun enough, they've split it up. That's very interesting because that's what CAPS would have done. But you can see there's really no difference in the syllabus. Everything is the same. The level of intensity is literally also the same. We have all the proof here. Anyways, so if you're going to work out the value of x where the fencing is a minimum, what you need is, if you need the minimum of something, you need an equation of whatever they're talking about. So we need an equation for us to see how much fencing is needed. Once we have that equation, right, that will give us the fencing needed. We take that equation, we get its first derivative, right? We get the first derivative of that equation, and then we make it equal to 0. That's what we do. We need an equation for the amount of fencing needed. We differentiate it, we make it equal to 0. So the amount of fencing needed here is obviously going to be x plus x plus x plus x plus x here, plus y, and then plus y. So that's the amount of fencing needed, you see. So let's start there, the fencing needed, right? The fencing is going to be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5x, and then plus 2y, you see, 5x plus 2y. Now this equation, you're better off having it in terms of x so that you can differentiate it and equate it to 0. This is where this comes in, So wherever you see y, you're going to throw there 1,000 over x minus x. And that equation is going to be in terms of x now. See, so 5x plus 2. And then you have this here in brackets. Let's put that there. And then here you have the 5x. If you multiply inside, right, you're going to have 2000 over x. Multiply again, you have negative 2x. This is f of x. The fencing, this is the equation for the fencing. If you simplify it, you can have 3x plus 2000 over x. Now you have an equation for the fencing needed. Remember, we said you can now get its first derivative, make it equal to 0, and so for x. That's the way you do these kinds of questions. So before you differentiate this, you have to put it in a format that we can actually differentiate. So to do that, anytime you see a fraction like this one, right, you have to take this x to the power of 1 next to the 2000. But then when you do that, the exponent has to become a negative. You see, this has not been differentiated. You have just simplified. When you now differentiate, now you need to show the symbol here. You see, the first derivative symbol. You see, the first derivative symbol. Now let's differentiate. 1 times 3 is a 3. 1 minus 1 is going to be a 0. X to the power of 0 is a 1. Here, negative times 2000 is negative 2000. Moving on from the exponent, you're going to get a negative 2. Now this, you need to make it equal to 0, you see. 3 minus 2000, x to the power of negative 2. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about the negative 2 there. This can just go over to the left side. It becomes a positive 2000 to the power of negative 2. Remember, moving it to the other side does not affect your exponent. It only affects the value here. It affects the sign here. So you're going to divide both sides by 2000 here. And then obviously now you can just solve for x. Solving for x here, you just need your calculator. Because in your calculator, all you need to do is you literally just need to, you can literally just put a negative. You can just do this in your calculator. Now, okay, an easy way is you can actually, there's a 1 here, right? You can take this value under the 1. The exponent becomes a plus. And then since you want to solve for x, you can now just cross multiply. You have 2000. This times 3 is that. Divide both sides by 3. You have 2000 over 3, which is x squared. Square root both sides here. X is equal to square root of 2000 over 3. The reason you're not going to need to put plus or minus here is because distance cannot be a negative, you see. So if you put this in the calculator, it's also giving you 25.82. That's your minimum value of x. And this is the nature of these kinds of questions. You need the equation of whatever they're talking about. Once you get that equation, you need to then make sure it has a single variable. And then you have to differentiate that equation. You make it equal to 0, you get whatever they're asking for. So let's move on to question number 12.